All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistulka. And with me today, I've got David Finkelstein. We're going to be from BDEX, and we're going to be talking about understanding the importance of first-party data. David, thank you for being here today.
Damon, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited because this is something that some people may not think they really should understand, but I think it's a topic that we're going to uncover a few things that people may want to learn more about it. So I'm excited to talk today. So David, we always like to start off the show by letting you kind of give us some of your background and your history, kind of, how you got to where what you're doing today.
All right. Well, I'm happy to. So my history goes back. I'm a long time entrepreneur. I started my first business 6 months out of college back in 1994. I started an internet service provider and literally started it because I got out of college where I was using the internet, and then the internet didn't really exist back then, except for in colleges, right? The only other thing that really existed was AOL and Prodigy. And so I couldn't revert back to, using something like AOL after using the internet the way it was in college. So I started an internet service provider, and that got me off and running. It was literally just started in my father had a business. So, I kind of have entrepreneurship in my blood, and started it in a little room in his office building, literally one computer with a bunch of modems hanging off of it. And away we went. And so that's kind of what got me sort of my entrepreneurial start. And I ended up growing that business, over the course of about 6 years, and selling it in 2000 to a cable company called U.S. Cable Corporation. At the time, I think they were about the 13th largest cable company in the U.S. And that was sort of my initial internet journey, and helped them deploy internet across their cable systems, and then left there. And Michael Aronov, who is now my partner, was my employee number one at that business. And he and I left there and started an internet advertising business called Contextual Ads. And so
what were you doing? What were you doing there? Because it said that you served up billions of ads.
Yeah. So we were sort of a back end platform for targeting ads. And so we built a technology that helped target ads contextually. So basically, if you're on a music website, we could see that the website was music related, and as the ad was loaded, we basically looked at the content of the website and said, okay, this is music related, let's show a music related ad. And so we used this technology to help target ads for a handful of clients. It really was kind of a lifestyle of business. We only had a few clients. eBay, Verizon, and AT&T were our biggest clients, and we served literally billions of ads for them. And that business grew over the course of time to not just target ads contextually, but also behaviorally. So we started not just tracking what you were looking at today, right, on that website, but what were you looking at recently? And what are the behavioral habits around your website visiting, and ads that you clicked on and things like that. So we really got to know and understand the consumer better.
Yeah.
And that sort of brought us into this data business that we're in today with BDEX, because at the time we ran that business for about 10 years, and then sort of lots of other technology came out for targeting ads, and it sort of got commoditized, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're in a business that's commoditized, you want to look internally and say, okay, well, what do we have here that really differentiates ourselves, right? And at that time we said, well, we had built this technology to manage the data, because we were, like you said, we were driving ads for billions of ad impressions and tracking a lot of data. So just managing that data was difficult. We're talking, trying to think, we're talking, between 10 and 15 years from now. So we didn't have the processing power we have today. So there was just a lot of work to manage that data. And so we saw the value of the business going forward was really tied to the data, that the data was the key to everything that we were doing. And that's when we set out to build BDEX, which is essentially this data exchange platform, which is really geared towards driving performance for advertisers based on, timely data.
Yeah. Yeah. So you developed another one in here too that I saw in your profile called Triple Jacks. Triple Jack, a poker. So you just in your spare time, you were like, hey, let's come up with a fun one.
It's a funny story, actually. Somewhere along the line, I'm trying to remember exactly when it was before we started BDEX. So it was, while we're running Contextual Ads, I got into poker. And so I started looking for some place to play online, and I wasn't into playing for money because I wasn't ready to, I was just learning how to play.
Yeah.
And so I found this website. Triple Jack was a website at the time, and there really wasn't a business around it. It was, it turned out, it was just a fun game to play online. And, I had contacted the owner, the guys, there were two guys that created the game. Crazy story is these two guys never met. They hadn't met each other. They both met each other online. One was more of a designer, graphic designer, computer designer, and the other was more of a computer programmer. And the two of them said, hey, wouldn't it be cool to create a poker game? Would you design it and I'll do the back end work? And they had created this game without ever meeting. And so I had met them online and started chatting with them. And I was like, I kind of like what you guys are doing here, but I think there's like more of an opportunity to create kind of a business around it. And so they were like, all right, well, that'd be cool. Let's talk about that. And I said, well, let's, where you guys live, I'll come fly out and I'll meet you guys. And they're like, well, we've never met each other. One of them was from Austin and the other one from Colorado, Denver. And so I was like, you know what? Well, let's all meet. Where should we meet? So we ended up meeting in Austin and met the two of them. We hit it off and we kind of decided, okay, let's build a business around it. So it's kind of like a fun side business that we've had for a number of years. It's just a fun, free, silly little
that's cool.
Where what's fun about it is you can play a hand of poker and if the other person beats you in a hand, you can throw a pie in their face or something like that.
Well, I saw that. That was kind of fun. I'm going to have to get on there and try it because I think that would be a good time. It'd be a good time. We got a lot of people in here today. We got Mike O'Connor's in here today. Jesse's here. Saying hello to Mike and hello to everyone else. We got Elizabeth Jeffries here. And then down here, Jesse's got some comments in here, and I'm trying to get through a few of them here. Michael's here. I believe you know him. So your partner in the business there. It's good stuff. And then Jesse's saying it's exciting to hear your story. So it's awesome. It's awesome. And then we got Joshua Morgan. There we go, Joshua. Nice to see you today.
Hey, Josh. Cheers.
So you're in BDEX, and what? I mean, because you started this 8 years ago, right? You started 8 years ago. This is before people were really talking about first-party data, because we were living in the heyday of, heck, 8 years ago was like, just put up some pay-per-click money and you can sell stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what really, I mean, that's some forethought there to be able to go into that.
Yeah. I mean, well, honestly, one of the things that really sort of caught our eye in starting this was when we had the other business, Contextual Ads, and we were looking at the data that we had about, that we were using to target ads.
Yeah.
And then we said, you know what, let's talk to some of the other data companies out there and talk to them about licensing the data. And so we're like, it would be interesting to see if they could leverage this data too, right, for their advertisers. And so we did that. And in talking to them, we realized that there were some challenges in doing that, because they were asking us to zip up big files of data, that we had seen people going to certain types of websites or whatever it was. we would send it to them, and they would tell us, okay, well, now we're going to aggregate this data with some other data that we get from some other sources. We're going to build audiences out of it, and then we're going to activate it. And so that whole process took about 90 days. And so, as you can imagine, if we're tracking, that you're looking to buy a new car, and then we're going to give them this data, and they're going to process it for 90 days and then activate it for their advertisers, 90 days later, you may have bought that car.
Yeah, it's done deal. It's gone already. Yeah.
So that's really what started the whole thing. Is we said, wow,
Okay.
this whole process that you guys are using is kind of broken. Like, you're losing all the value of the data. And so we went to them and said, hey, what if we could build a platform that would help you aggregate that data in more real time? Let us do the aggregation for you. We'll aggregate it with all kinds of other data assets, and then help you activate that. And so that's kind of what led us to start BDEX, was just that idea where we kind of foresaw that would solve a problem. It turned out that everything didn't work as planned, right? And nothing ever really does. And we pivoted a little bit from that since today. But overall, that's how we started the whole thing, and that was the whole idea and the concept behind the data exchange platform, which is really the backbone of our platform.
Yeah. So for people, hey, hello, Rodney. Great to see you today. For people that understand first-party data, can you just give us a brief synopsis of what first-party data really is?
Yeah, I mean, first-party data is the data that you own as a company about your customers, right? Yeah. And so you have the opportunity, when you have a customer, to collect information, whether it be just from them buying it, maybe they bought a product, so now you've learned something about them, or whether they've actually, you surveyed your customers and asked them for information. These are ways that you can obtain information about your existing customers. And so, what we've been challenging businesses to do is find ways to leverage that first party data. It's super valuable. And a lot of companies use it, hopefully, to decide what of their own products they can target to their existing customers, right? So you get that all the time, right? You buy something from Amazon, you get an email saying that we have, some other similar product or whatever. Or when you go to their website, it says we have this similar product to what you previously bought. And that's great. But the real question is, how do you leverage that to find new customers? And so that's what we're really challenging people in the industry to resolve. And so our latest product, our OmniIQ machine learning product, does exactly that. And it's building audiences that are seeded based on your first party data, so that you can find more people like those people that have purchased from you before.
Okay. Yeah, because so the great explanation. So thanks for getting us that and getting started there. So there are some changes for the people that don't know that have been in the recent past with Apple, and some privacy changes, and then the upcoming things that Google's going to be doing with cookies. Can you explain those a little bit and why that makes this more relevant to more people?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, with the changes in the laws, the changes in iOS and Android that are limiting what data can be tracked, or how it can be tracked, or how it can be used, that's going to limit the third-party data that exists out there. And so that basically means it's going to be harder to find resources that will be able to provide data that will help you target your advertising today. And we've seen, our clients, I've seen friends that have already had their businesses affected from those changes, just because the ad targeting within Facebook or within Instagram or within any ad platform that they're using just isn't working as effectively anymore, because there is less data being tracked about consumers. And so this is the problem that I sort of mentioned earlier, is just companies need to figure out how to leverage their first party data to find more customers, because that third-party data is going to get harder and harder to find.
Yes. So then this is, I'm gonna try to give my simplistic view of what was happening if I had before, like iOS, for example. I've got an iPhone. Before the iOS privacy changes, and you mentioned laws too, and laws have affected this in certain states, but before the iOS privacy changes, Facebook was monitoring not just when I was on Facebook, but it was monitoring all of my activities on my phone, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it could basically have access to, not directly, they're not monitoring what apps you're using, but those apps that you were using had a mechanism where they could sell that data to Facebook. They could track it and sell it to Facebook, and every website and every app that you're using essentially was doing all of that. And that's why you were able to, sort of be targeted across, different apps or different websites that you're using with similar content.
Yeah. And it is, people often wonder why, I was just thinking about buying something, or I may have searched for it, and then all of a sudden it shows up on my phone, or it shows up in a different app and something else. And that was part of that ecosystem working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And with the iOS changes, that was largely limited. And so you're saying that the first party data, what you're doing is you're actually taking the people that I'm selling to, understanding them better by using the data that you can legally and ethically collect on them, and turn it into, here maybe other people with similar situations. I don't know, I'm not using the right words, but similar habits or patterns that would say that they could be potential customers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. This doesn't sound easy.
No, it's not. In fact, I mean, a lot of this couldn't have been done even just a few years ago because of the processing power that's required, to process this much data.
Yeah.
And so, we were just literally just having a conversation about that today in our engineering meeting. Just the fact that, there's a lot of processing that goes behind building an audience based on, a first party seed, and then applying machine learning to it. There's a lot of, because of all the processing that's going on, that, like I said, it's just something that, if you just go a few years back, you probably couldn't even do it to the same extent you could do it today. It would just be cost prohibitive. It would cost way too much.
Yeah. Well, Michael says the time is now to leverage first party data. And I think he's right, because, and this is hitting anyone that's advertising. Really, it's because it's making it less and less, each dollar less and less effective, unless you are doing something outside of the methods that were used before. So Google's also changing something to do with cookies, and that's going to take them a while yet before they do it. But how is that going to further affect this?
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the same ecosystem. So because with third-party cookies, going away, that means less data on the open web that will be tracked, right? So across multiple websites. So when you talk about third-party data, it's like you're on Facebook's website, and when you go to Facebook's website right now, or Yahoo, or any website you go to, there's 50 different companies that are tracking your activity on that website, so that they can learn something about you and target you. And there's controversy around whether people like being tracked or not, but from my perspective, and I'm not just saying this because it's the business I'm in, I'm saying this as a consumer, that I want to be targeted, because I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to see ads for, insurance all the time, or, payday loans, or whatever we used to see back in the day when you couldn't target ads. It was very generic ads. I like when I go to a website, or I'm in an app, or whatever it is, and I see an ad that is related to something I'm actually interested in. And I give this example all the time. People that follow me online have seen this example numerous times, but I haven't been to a McDonald's in 25 years. And yet when I watch TV, I see McDonald's ad almost every day on linear TV, because they don't have the ability to target me. They have they don't know enough about me. I don't want that, like that's not a good experience to me, and so that's the challenge is, right, how do you get people comfortable with data collection and targeting, but at the same time give them the quality experience, because there's been too many companies that have abused the privilege of targeting and tracking data, that have kind of ruined the sort of
muddied the waters for everyone else that's trying to do it.
Because if you want to do it, and you want to do it in a respectful manner, then it could be very rewarding, both for the company that's doing the advertising, but also for the consumer.
Well, yeah, like you said, you're getting the ads you want, and you answered a question that I was actually asking myself a few weeks ago watching television. I was like, I wonder if they've gotten to the point to where they actually are feeding me the ads that I really want to see, because it sure doesn't seem like it, because every other one's a Geico commercial and whatever else. I think they must have it down.
That's the problem with TV, is they just don't have the ability to target at the set-top box level
to an individual
or an individual household, the way that they do it. They do it based on DMA, so everybody in that DMA is getting targeted. They're getting the same ads. That's the problem. Not like on the web or on a mobile app, or even on a CTV platform, where you can actually have a much more targeted ad. But with these changes, you're gonna see some things go backwards. I mean, I was just on the phone yesterday with a guy consulting for $100 million a year business that has a $400 purchase point for a product, and their acquisition costs have shot up to $100, over $100, because of these changes. And so they're coming to me and saying, how do we fix this? Like, can you help us find, the right people to target our ads to, because we can't continue our business like this.
It's huge. I mean, because over the past, COVID caused just normal pay-per-click prices to go up because of competition, and people wanted to sell more online. But I'm sure that the lack of targeting, or as it changed, the reduced effectiveness of the targeting, like you said, can put companies literally out of business. So when you talk about putting this together, right, and you go, and you mentioned something in a post, I think it was today or a few days ago, about touch points. Now, kind of without getting into anything proprietary, how are you doing this? I mean, because it's just seems like this is a massive thing to figure out what I'm doing on a given day, or how does it happen?
It's billions of data points coming in daily from thousands of different websites and apps and POS systems that are tracking purchases and all kinds of things. And so then you have to take all of that, and you gotta they're basically puzzle pieces, right? Each one is a little piece of data, and it tells us something, but it's really nothing without the rest of it all put together. So it's a matter of taking all this data and really sort of reconstructing it into something that's useful.
Because I think that my habits, I was in Starbucks today, got a coffee, that was probably tracked by some for some reason. And how does that affect the whole thing? How does that affect me? And it's really interesting to see how we can put big data together to really help get the right products to the right people.
And I think long term, I think that there's so many things going on right now around identity and ad targeting and privacy, that I think that there is a long-term solution. I think the industry is struggling to find it right now. But I do think that there is a long-term solution around what I would call consent management. And so that the idea of consent management is, you go to a website or you're using an app, and that app asks you, hey, I want to collect some data about you, and here's how I'm going to use it. Full transparency. Here's how we want to use it. We want to improve the experience for you, whatever. And those websites or apps that you trust that are being transparent like that, you're going to say okay to. You're going to say, yeah, that I'm good with that. Some you might not, because maybe they have a history of, that's pretty, that has already sort of made you feel uncomfortable. And so you're saying no to those. And the ones that you say yes to will, track certain information about you. And that information becomes available to other companies that will, be able to track you. But I mean, be able to use that data to target you because you allowed it. But ultimately, a lot of that goes on today, but right now you go to every website and it's just a button that says, we're going to track you, yes or no. And you're just like, okay. And you have no idea what's going on. There's no transparency there.
Yes.
And so I believe that the real solution is an application that gives you that transparency and allows you to monitor that.
Yeah.
All in one place. So you don't have to go to 10, 20 different websites or different apps and see, okay, what are these guys tracking about me? Should I allow them? I'm going to turn this one on. I'm going to turn this one off. You need sort of a centralized place to do that. And if there's one place that will kind of manage all your consent, I think that that's the long-term solution. No one's really put it together yet. And so I think that, the industry is still playing with lots of different potential solutions, but I think that is what the industry really ultimately needs in order for us to be able to have the same experience you're having today or 2 years ago before all this started, and feel good about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not feel like it's being abused.
You bring up some really good points when you talk about this centralized consent management, because if you think about this, and if there was just say an application on your phone, on your computer, whatever device you're on, and you can say, hey, I just want to see the data that was transmitted, that was shared across everything.
Yeah.
I just want to see what was shared. And I really think that 90+% of the time people go, oh, that's innocuous. I don't care.
Right. And most people don't care. But the only reason they care is because they don't know. They can't. There's no transparency. They don't know what the heck you're doing.
I think
a lot of people are afraid you're going too far. You're listening to every word I'm saying or whatever it is. People are afraid that you're listening on their phone and that the Alexa is listening to you. And Facebook has gotten caught doing that actually. So so it just needs transparency.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about would be a stellar solution, just because of the fact that, like you said, if I knew exactly what was going and I could look at it whenever I wanted, and just knowing that they could would give people enough confidence to just go ahead and do it. But then if you wanted to take the next level and you could look at it and you realize that what it was doing and how all the little pieces were really nothing, it would make people so much more comfortable. That's a great idea. Holy heck. So you're on the Forbes Technology Council, and we talked about that a little bit more. And you said that gives you an opportunity. So to help, comment and contribute and publish articles and really help educate. So is this centralized consent management? Is that something you hear other people starting to talk about, or is it?
I haven't. I've seen a few companies that have created sort of consent management, but it's more I'd say individualized to a single business. Okay. So let's just say you're Best Buy, and Best Buy wants to know stuff about you, and so it may allow them to sort of control what you're sharing to Best Buy or something like that, but not to third parties and not cross-platform and all of that. So I haven't really seen it. I'll be honest and say it's kind of been an internal project that we've
Oh yeah.
discussed and we've been investigating. But you know, it's my belief that that's kind of the long-term solution to solve all of this.
Yeah, I think it's a super cool idea, man. I just think so. Elizabeth agrees. She thinks it's a good idea too. So, and what we agree to and how it's being used, and it's
Thanks, Elizabeth.
like you said, it's the not knowing makes people
Yeah.
go to the extreme of the bad. So, when on the Forbes Technology Council that you're on, I mean, what are some of the far out stuff that you've seen on there? You said you get to comment and review some. What's some of the far out stuff that you get to see that we haven't heard about, haven't talked about? That you go, wow, that's kind of wild.
Oh, honestly, I don't know that I've seen anything that far out. Far out. It's really more, we write, content and publish them. Send it to them, and they'll publish the
Okay.
ones that they like. So if they like the content we write, then they'll
right.
publish it. And so it's more of an opportunity for us to further educate. We take the things that we're talking about here. We put them into an article. Share it through Forbes Tech Council.
Okay.
It's really, the Tech Council is really just tech leaders around the world that are just sharing knowledge. And Forbes just is sort of the mediator of that knowledge to get it out to the world for us.
Oh, it's cool that you're involved with it. I'm sure it's a lot of fun when you can get information shared through a medium like that.
Yeah, and we're all about that. I mean, obviously, anyone that's followed us and seen, followed me or the company has seen that we try to put out as much content as possible, just educating the community about, the industry, changes going on in the industry, and how, obviously how we can, help, but also just, what's going on and where we think the industry is going.
Yeah. So, in regards to that, what do you think is, if you could share what you believe is the most important educational point around first party data that you've heard recently, what would that be?
Oh, the one thing I always tell people is just make sure you're leveraging your first party data, because so many people have customers and they don't realize that the best opportunity to learn is from your own customers. Right.
Okay.
And so the worst thing I've seen companies do is send out a survey that's like 10 minutes long asking for feedback. The best thing I've ever seen was a company called Rackspace, where they used to send out, and I've seen other companies do it since then. But I remember, they used to send out an email with one question, and click 1 through 5, rate us on this or whatever, or multiple choice, pick one on this. The best way to survey your customers is to ask them one question at a time. People don't want to invest too much time, and you'd be surprised at how much people are willing to share information with you. If they know you and you're talking about your customers. And so your customers are always going to be willing to share information if they believe that will help them get, better service from you down the road. So that's an opportunity that should not be lost on anyone.
And you make a good point. I'm writing the note down. They're willing to share if they believe it'll help them get better products or service in the future. And that's one of the things I think that if you're telling people that's a great point. Make that, because we'll give information if we think it's going to make our experience or our products or services better the next time.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So let's see, I'm looking through my questions here. So as you've been going through this over the years, have the needs of your customers really changed a lot as the change in it? Or has it always kind of been, we're trying to put together the learn more about their existing and potential customers? Or has there been like, well, it really changes because we need to know, I don't even know the right words to ask around this, but it was one of my thoughts is you've been in this for now over 8 years. And I was just wondering how the needs of your customers have changed, other than, of course, losing the other kind of things. Has there really been much of a change beyond that?
I don't think there has. I mean, it's always, for us at least, it's always been a focus on understanding your customers,
Okay.
for one, and then helping you reach more customers like them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we've done it a couple of different ways. And so obviously we're steering more towards helping companies do this with first party data, where we used to, use a lot of third party data to do it in the past. But ultimately we're solving the same problem, in a different way. But it's always shocking to me, going back to what we were just talking about, leveraging your first party data. It's always shocking to me how many people come to us and they want to find more customers, but they don't know anything about their customers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know, the age distribution of them, or income levels or things like that, just basic, really simple stuff. And so that's, going back to that is what we were always trying to tell people, is it's really important to understand who your customers. And it's great. You come to us and you don't know this, we can help you.
Mm-hmm.
We have, we can help you figure out who your customers are.
Yeah.
That's great. And we're happy to do that, but that's something that, a lot of companies don't realize that, they could be doing on their own as well, just by asking.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a client, literally, this was 3-4 years ago, that had an email list of several 100,000 customers, and they had no idea where they lived. They had no idea. They just knew they bought something. They didn't know anything about them. And it was amazing. And they were not sending out any emails at the time to, so
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it changes. And people, if your business is doing well, I think it allows you to get honestly a little bit lazy. And
I mean,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, you gave me the perfect opportunity to plug our product, because that we have a product that you literally can upload those email addresses and it'll, spit you back a bunch of charts and graphs and show you, the demographics of those users. And so, we do that as sort of a almost as a public service, where we won't even charge for that, because we feel it's important for you to know something about your existing customers. And, obviously we'll then take that and use that, against our modeling to find more people that, that look just like those customers. But, these are simple things that everybody should know about their customers.
Yeah, writing some notes on that, because it is because I think back to that situation, right? We had all the emails, had addresses, had everything, but had no other demographic information other than that. And that's great. That's great. Well, this is so interesting. I've got to go back though. I know we've been talking about the first party data, and this is just, when I think of first party data and what you guys are putting together, the gazillion different points that you've got to put together, and the machine learning and everything else it takes to put it, it's mind boggling to me. Mm-hmm. It's super cool what you're doing. And even like you said, a few years ago, you couldn't even do this kind of stuff because it was cost prohibitive from a CPU power standpoint.
Yeah.
But what do you think we're going to be able to do couple years from now that you're like, man, we can't even touch it now, but I really think things are going to happen?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a great question. And I think that, one of the really cool things that I look forward to is when we can actually do that in real time.
Yeah.
And so, the machine learning algorithms are learning as you're doing things online. Mm-hmm. You just bought something. The worst thing that I've ever seen, and you see it all the time, you buy something online and then you see an ad for the same thing for the next 48 hours because they haven't figured out that you bought it, right?
Yes.
So imagine in a world where you start searching for something and now you're seeing ads for exactly what you want to buy, and you go ahead and you buy it, and now that stops, because it realizes that you made that purchase and now you're on to something else. Right. And now it's
Yes.
your wife's birthday and you're searching for something for her birthday. And now it's showing you all kinds of stuff for that. That to me is like, that's the ultimate goal, is when these, this machine learning algorithms can kind of learn as you go, and process data as you go, so that it's constantly, targeting you with the right messages instead of stuff you bought already,
Yeah.
or whatever.
That's a great point, though, because how annoying is it that because it's happened to everyone, because it's still, it's still a fact of life with us, but to be able to move on and change from it. Oh, that's great. So I do have one question. Back when you started your internet, when you had the internet service provider company, I'm imagining you, because you're in your dad's shop there, and you had the computer with the modems on it. How did that change over the years that you had that? Because that was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Dial up to broadband or whatever, constant connected internet. So just explain that a little bit.
I'll paint you a picture. So we start out, my father, so we started this business in New Jersey. And so we had this building. My father had this office building that was in downtown Ramsey, New Jersey, for anyone that knows New Jersey, small town in northern New Jersey. And the building itself, I think, was built in like 1901. So it was actually an old house that was converted into an office building. And so if you can picture this old house from 1900s, it literally had a rock foundation. The foundation was made of rocks with mortar in between them. And so in the basement of that was where the phone lines came in. And we actually had, when we started this business, we had a single 56K line into the internet, right? I think we got with AT&T or something. And then we had a computer with like 8 or 10 modems connected to it, with a little, serial port that could connect 8 or 10 modems to it. And so we created, we built the software that would allow people to log in and then be able to connect to whatever. There wasn't really a web back then. So it really was like, when we first started, it was news groups and the old Usenet news groups and email and stuff like that. And the web started soon after. And so that's how we started. And so over the years, we started taking up more and more space in the building. And so, at one point we had one of the rooms, which probably was only, if I'd guess, probably about 12 by 12 room. But in that room, by the time we had sort of built up this business, there were racks, computer racks, lined up in this building with computer equipment and modems that were built in racks. So US Robotics made like a big rack where you could fit 20 modems into it and into the rack. And so we had these things all lined up on these racks in this, mind you, building that was built in 1900. And, and by then we had a couple of T1 lines coming into it. So the speed had gone up a little bit over the years. And then we even had, a few other locations where we would put, equipment in some of our clients' offices, so that we could have local dial-up numbers in different places. Before you got, sort of those companies like AT&T that would set up international dial-up numbers. And so that's kind of how we started the whole thing. When we sold it, we had 3 locations in New Jersey, but we were serving, but by then we had a relationship with AT&T, and we could leverage other phone numbers throughout the country. So we were providing national dial-up, and we were doing websites, and we were doing all this stuff in this. By the time we sold the business, I had taken over the whole building. My father had sold his business and moved on, and we had taken over the whole building, and it was just kind of this weird, clash of this old building and all this, what was new technology at the time. It was kind of neat.
Yes. Well, it's interesting for people that had grew up in the last, 10, 15 years of the constant on internet in our cell phones and everything, don't realize, the old dial-up where the modem had to dial the other modem, and the connections and stuff. And that was quite the exciting time as things were moving.
I still have back here, actually, that is the original hard drive that ran the entire company when we first started it. And the team back then, I think it was our 5-year anniversary. We had finally retired that computer, and they took the hard drive and framed it for me.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, David, I just appreciate you taking the time to just talk about first party data and some of your thoughts around it, because I know what you guys are doing at BDEX there is really helping a lot of people that want to understand more about their current and prospective customers. So what's the best way if somebody wants to get a hold of you? Is it to get on the BDEX website and go through there, or what's the best way to, if someone wants to reach out to BDEX?
Yeah, I mean, the website, bdex.com, super
Okay.
easy.
Yep.
You can reach me at david@bdex.com,
Okay.
or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here today, David Finkelstein, BDEX, talking about understanding first-party data. You've given us so many insights and thoughts and perspectives on it. I just appreciate it, and love the story about the ISP and Triple Jack, your poker company. I think is a fun little diversion. So,
Yep.
thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Damon. Anytime.
All right. Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks so much for being here today. We will be back again next week with another guest on the Faces of Business. Thanks a lot.